Well, hey, howdy, hey, folks. Back again at Schlockaholics. We've got a special episode for you today. We've got the one, the only, I'm probably going to miss some stuff here, but writer, director, producer, actor, extraordinaire, Joseph Voegele with us today. How's it going, Joe?
Things are going terrific today. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
Thanks for being on. It's been a long time coming. I'm glad we finally were able to hammer it down today. We are very much looking forward to this.
Yeah, I'm actually glad that you started out all these different things, because every time I end up doing something, I always end up saying, well, I wrote and directed this thing. But in fact, every time I do something, same with Joe Sherlock or anybody else that I know that does what we do 20, 30 other different jobs too, including catering and whatnot. So,
right.
Every part that you see about that movie, it's like we're a producer, we're doing everything else too. So, yeah, it is.
A man that wears a lot of hats.
A jack of all trades, if you will. You kind of have to be that, I think.
We have a Joe of all trades.
Yeah. So I guess the first question that's a good one is, what's it like having a friend named Joe? I've never had a friend that had the same name as me.
Oh, I was pretty. So whenever we're hanging out, Joe Sherlock and I, people call him Big Joe and I'm Little Joe. So it's easier. So if we're going out for pizza or if we're working on a set together or something like that, and everybody's just like Joe, and we both turn, they're like Big Joe, So that
is adorable. Cool. I love
it. So yeah.
So thanks for Cody. Fix what I've done here. get us going. I'm sorry.
So how'd you and Sherlock meet?
Joe Sherlock and I met probably about 7 or 8 years ago now at Crypticon Seattle, actually. So it was my first horror convention I had ever been, and of course I've been a lifelong horror movie lover and just movie lover in general, but I had discovered Crypticon Seattle a couple months before it was happening, and then I was going on their website and I started looking at all these movie trailers because I wanted to find more independent sort of stuff and just more interesting things. And Joe had his trailer for Odd Noggins, which I think he was premiering that year. And then I watched that trailer probably 8 or 10 times, and it just blew my mind. And so I said, this is a guy that I got to meet. And so going to that show, I intentionally sought out his table. And as soon as I got there, I met Dale, and I think actually I met Joe maybe very briefly later on, but then I was texting with him a whole bunch as I was inspired by him to make my first movie shortly thereafter. So yeah, we met up at Crypticon Seattle quite a while ago, and then just over the years we've kind of touched bases and then worked together a lot more and just been, good filmmaker friends. And I try to get down to Oregon with those guys every once in a while. I think I went maybe 4 times this last year to go hang out and film and stuff like that. So I've acted for Joe and I've directed stuff for Joe, and that's a long story. I ramble a bit if you didn't notice. So anyway,
we like it. Keep doing
it.
We're here so you guys got thick as thieves. That's awesome, man. Yeah. Just through chance meeting at a convention and checking out his trailer. That's rad. It's good to know that we're both late bloomers to the convention scene with the horror stuff as well. I just went to my first Crypticon last year.
That's awesome. What you think?
Oh, I loved it. It's a fantastic convention.
Isn't it?
It's right in that range where I prefer. I don't like a really, thick, overpopulated.
Yeah, neither do I. That's why I stopped going to Comic-Con. It's just too darn many people. But Crypticon is perfect because it scares off the normies. They don't know what to do with all the blood and everything like that. Yeah.
Easily situated vendor floors or vendor halls. Yeah. It's like you just run right through them, I spent most of my time in that one that Joe and them were in, because VHSPS I think also had a booth in there, and the kid bought.
Oh, so you were there when Dave? Well, yeah. So I was there too. So David Sterling was there, and everybody was there. So yeah, we were.
Oh
there.
Yeah. I got to witness the majesty of the mullet in person. It was glorious.
Yeah, David. Yeah.
Can't wait for the next meeting. So you guys have kind of touched on when you got started doing this stuff, but when did kind of your love of horror begin? Do you remember what your first sort of horror film was that you knew, man, I love this shit?
I do. So I was probably 6 years old or so, and I was watching. My parents were asleep, and so I'd stay up late watching TV or sneak down there. And so I think my first one was probably the original King Kong. And then so I just loved it. I always loved that film. And then I remember seeing Cujo when I was really young at like 3 a.m, and that scared the shit out of me. And then what else? And then when I was about that age, I saw Friday the 13th Part 6. It was about 12 o'clock at night. Yeah. Parents were asleep. And I remember that blew my mind. And so ever since, Friday the 13th has been my favorite franchise. So yeah, I was about 6 years old. And then we were watching Evil Dead 2 was one of my first. And then Creepshow 2 was one of my favorites. Return of the Living Dead Part 2. A lot of Part 2s, a lot of sequels, growing up.
Oh yeah, so, Freddy's Revenge. That's a big one for me.
Oh yeah, the 3D part. Yeah.
Creepshow 2 has the one with the gooey shit in the lake, right?
That's right. Yeah, I used to watch that one all the time because it had some like great nudity in that one.
It really does.
Yeah.
There's a lot of parallels with the kind of stuff that we like. It seems.
This is true. Yeah.
Maybe it's a Northwest thing. I don't know. Yeah. I prefer a lot of sequels and definitely love the anthology stuff as we'll dig into tonight. But that's my first question for you. I just kind of wanted to get a feel for, where it all began for you. Do you have a particular movie that you saw at some point when you were younger that kind of planted the seed in your head of like, maybe one day I could do this myself?
As far as making films, I don't think I ever had that thought in my head in my earlier days. I just always loved horror films. And I ended up doing a lot of theater when I was a kid and when I was a teenager. And then I went and did some college courses on theater. So I was acting a lot back in my teens and early 20s. And then at some point I just got kind of tired of acting and things, and then I wanted to direct, and so I wanted to write, actually. So I've always been a writer, and so I'd be writing all these scripts and all these stories and everything like that. And I thought, well, maybe one of these days somebody will make my movie. And I even talked to some friends that they'd vaguely talk to somebody else, and they'd be like, oh yeah, he'd be kind of interested in reading your script. And then at some point, because I ended up writing this huge, very what's the word I'm looking for? Very rude, kind of my forte sort of thing, my trauma-esque thing. I called the Belltown Losers, and it was a fun, very it was a horror comedy sort of thing about two burnout drunks that end up coming afoul of some demons and things like that. And so I had written that, and I had tried to talk to people into making that, but nothing ever came about it. And it was just like, finally, when I found Crypticon and I talked to Joe, that I finally it popped in my head. It was like, well, if anybody's going to do it, then you got to do it yourself. And that's just, ever since then, I've kind of felt like I've had this bug up my ass, just kind of get it all done and like, don't stop, because you're the only one that's going to be doing this. You're the only one that's going to put that fire under your ass to get this stuff done.
That's awesome. You got bit by that DIY bug. So I guess, my third element to this, since you mentioned it, would be, is there any of that earlier stuff that you've written, like that awesome story about the burnouts going against the demons, that you still plan on hopefully making at some point, now that you know that you can just do it yourself if you really want to?
There's some stuff like earlier stories and things like that where I've just kind of, when I moved away from the scripts, I just kind of bastardized those scripts, and I took away. I was like, oh, I remember wanting to do this one particular thing from it. And so I'm constantly stealing from old scripts to put into new scripts. So if you ever read one of my old scripts, you'd be like, oh, that's where he got, originally wrote that from. So I probably wouldn't go back to any of those, maybe the Belltown Losers thing, but I kind of wrote it with myself and my buddy Dave in mind. And we were two characters in their early 20s, and now we're two characters in our early 40s. So I just don't think I'd have the energy to act and star and direct and do all that for a feature film, especially.
How fun would it be to cast someone to be you in the movie?
That would be interesting. I'd have to find somebody that looks like me and then get drunk with me to kind of figure out if they were actually.
Yeah, dude. Best audition process ever.
Yeah, it's like, you're going to have to keep up with me, and you're really going to have to love PBR. So,
yeah. That shouldn't be too hard to find up here.
It's the Northwest. Everybody loves PBR.
So that's it. I'll hand it back to you, Cody. I just wanted to get in a couple of those origin pieces there real quick before we moved too far beyond it.
Okay. I'm going to try not to jump all over the place, but if I do, just humor me.
Okay.
So what was your first feature that you decided to finally do after Sherlock kind of pushed you in that direction?
my very first thing was The Last Temptation of Bible Boy. So it was originally supposed to be short. So, and it ended up becoming a 45-minute film because I had no idea how to make a movie at the time. And so, but I had that, got that fire up under my ass after meeting Joe and watching all of his movies. And still to this day, Odd Noggins is, in my top 3 favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, boy.
I watch that almost every time before I go out to make another movie, because I end up going into those kind of lulls where I'm like, man, am I just gonna make this like an Ed Wood piece of shit sort of thing? Even though I love Ed Wood movies, but it's like, am I gonna end up fucking up this, filming this thing, doing whatever? And so I have to kind of like, I watch Odd Noggins, and then I watch the Tim Burton film Ed Wood, and those are the 2 movies to go to kind of start. But your question was, what was my first movie? The Last Temptation of Bible Boy, which was this. It started out as a short, and I had no idea what I was doing whatsoever. And so I wrote this script with my buddy John Stone, and so we would be drinking beers and we'd take turns going off and on. I was like, I'd write some, and then I'd tag him in, he'd go write, and then we went back and forth. And then as I was filming and writing and doing all this stuff, I was texting Joe, and he's really great about lending me his expertise and telling me, do this. But at the end of the day, it was basically, I learned what not to do when making a movie and some what to do. And so, but overall it was just a silly gross horror comedy, The Last Temptation Bible Boy, and that's out through SOV Horror. So that is your long answer. I give those.
That was actually leading into my next question. That was gonna be, how did you and John Stone hook up?
Johnny Boy and I have known each other since high school, or early high school, and we've just been friends ever since. We've lived together off and on over the years, been roommates, and he's moved around different states. I've moved around different states, and then we both moved here. So we've just been good friends all these years. And, we used to, talk more about movies and make movies. And he's less on set these days because he's kind of focused on becoming a teacher and doing stuff like that. We've just known each other forever. And, we'd always talk about maybe making a movie one day, until I finally said, hey, how about we actually make that movie? So problem with that is you got to be a little bit more sober than drunk to actually get it done. So that's kind of where
true.
It came. Yep. So we may always be drunk, but we're not always drunk. Yeah. So
right. You got a follow up to that, Cody?
I think I don't know if this is time frame when you did this. I know it's listed 2020 on here, but I think the majority of the stuff I want to ask you about is Specimen 6.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Specimen 6 came out a few years back. Yep. If
you want to just kind of go into a little backstory and explain a little bit yourself, and then I'll throw in some questions in there.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. So Specimen 6 was probably my 4th or 5th project, something like that, but it was really my first like solo feature film that I've done. It's comprised of 6 different shorts, but they're all interconnected. And basically what Specimen 6 is my thesis on the slasher film, essentially. And I wanted to explore different avenues of what the slasher film meant to me, and kind of like get closer to what Werner Herzog would call like the ecstatic truth of the subject. And so when I was writing it, I actually started out as a book, and I wrote the first chapter. And so you can vaguely see that in the film, what the first chapter would have been. And it was actually chapter 5, I think, where you see Specimen 6 breaking out of his Stacy's and stuff like that. That was essentially what the first chapter kind of was. And so anyway, Specimen 6, I wanted to kind of explore what is a slasher killer and how is their relationship to the world, and how does the world react to such a force of pure evil, as that were. And so Specimen 6, and your question was, what was the question?
I was just vaguely a mention of the movie, really.
How did that come about? Specimen 6 came about because of all those things, and because I just had those thoughts on my mind for a long time. And usually when I'm like coming up with ideas and everything for my my shorts or my features, I end up writing down great deals more than there is. So everything you see in Specimen 6, I guarantee you there's 10 times more material from where all that came from. I think when we were writing it, we wrote probably 3 or 4 other scripts that we didn't get around to shooting, either because I was like, well, it's not quite exactly what I wanted to do, or we just didn't have the time to do it. So so Specimen 6 is my big crazy slasher film. It's my franchise. I kind of use it as I wanted to have this springboard for other stories. So I've done lots of other stuff in the Specimen 6 universe. We've done 5 audio plays, and I'm working on the 2 sequels right now.
Oh shit, that's awesome, dude.
Yeah. I was definitely going to ask you at the end of the movie. It definitely popped up, the Specimen 6 Unchained coming soon. So I was hoping that would be something that would still be coming soon.
It is still coming soon. I was hoping that it would come a lot sooner, but then the pandemic hit right as I was finishing the first movie. And so it was basically, I had a 98% of shooting done, and then everything shut down in the world. And then I was just like, I got to get my fucking pickup shot. So I'm running all over the place with like 1 or 2 friends that I still kind of hang out with, even though I'm not hanging out with anybody else. And I'd be like, can you just like, near the last chapter, my friend Mariana, who plays Aphrodite in the film, she was visiting, and I said, I've got to figure something out, because we had been we shot a whole bunch of other stuff for that short involving this monster hunter, and a lot of that footage just didn't turn out. A lot of Specimen 6 that we were doing was kind of also still teaching me like what to do or what not to do or what to avoid doing when making a movie. And so I had all this other footage I couldn't use, but I had to come up with something to make this short work. And it was, it's not too much of a spoiler to say, but Specimen 6, what did I call it? Is Specimen 6 goes to hell, because I've always wanted to see Jason Voorhees in hell, because Jason goes to hell. I fucking love the movie. However, he never shows him in hell, obviously. So I wanted to see that. So I took my character into hell, but I had to figure out how to get him there. So we had to cut all this monster hunter stuff, and the idea popped up into my head about having a goddess or something get pissed and send him to hell. And I said, well, Mariana, you have big boobs. Can you do this thing for me? And she goes, I guess so, Joe. And so we went and did that. And she's just beautiful. And she's, just a very good friend. And so we went and shot that. And I did other pickup shots. Like I inserted like a fire. I was camping. I was like, man, I need a better fire, because I forgot to shoot a fire scene earlier in the film, or a fire shot. And so I was camping. I just pulled out my phone and I filmed the fire. And so when you're seeing one of the scenes, it's all cut together between completely different places and times and everything like that. So it was quite the endeavor.
I thought the hell scenes definitely looked great. And you had a very fantastic Lucifer in Tanya Atomic. She did a great job.
Yeah, Tanya was terrific for that one. So what happened there was I had just vaguely kind of met Tanya over at one of the Crypticons, because I had seen Manos Returns, which Joe Sherlock worked on, and a bunch of my other friends who I became friends with after. I had already known Joe. I remember Joe sent me this thing saying, I'm doing Manos Returns, and I just met Jack. We're working with Jackie Neiman Jones and everything. I was like, that's super cool. So I ended up seeing Manos Returns, the world premiere thing at the Crypticon. And so I met Tanya there, and then we ended up working together a few extra times, but she had vaguely heard that I was doing this project Specimen 6, and she expressed interest to be like just an extra or something. I said, well, Tanya Atomic, I was like, I'm not going to have her just be an extra in my film. You don't do that. And so I actually specifically wrote the Lucifer scene with Tanya Atomic Mind. And so I wrote that one with my creative partner, Amy Christine Moline. And we wrote that specifically for Tanya. So, yeah.
That's rad, man. Is the main question I had for this one is, where is it available? Because I still haven't seen it, unfortunately.
Well, that's a really good question, actually. So before we had a special edition that came through, it was a limited special edition that came through SOV Horror. I had it on Vimeo for a bit, but Vimeo just kind of became the shit show that nobody can you can't find any movies on there. Even if you typed in my name or Specimen 6, it would pop in 10 weird other whatevers that had nothing to do with me. And so I pulled all my stuff from Vimeo, shut that down. And, but so if you want a copy, just let me know, send me your address and I'll send you a copy. But for if other people want extra special edition, I have been talking to Tony Mazziello about doing a Blu-ray for the new.
Yes.
and
yes, dude.
the Blu-ray. So this is a rather new. So I'm just like, this is the first time I'm saying this. So I will be. I was actually working on a story. I'll be adding an extra short to it to make it an extra special Blu-ray. So in case you have the DVD, you're like, why would I buy the Blu-ray? It's like, well, because it's actually going to have more stuff on it. It's going to have really cool stuff. Yeah.
He's a good one. He's a good egg, this guy. He definitely fits in that Joe camp of like, let's put some fucking awesome special features on there so that when you upgrade, it's worth the upgrade. And, I just can't wait, man. So far, the only stuff of yours, unfortunately, that I've been able to see, or fortunately, rather, is Axe Grinder 3 and then the 2 Dark Zone 13 movies.
Well, I'm very proud of all 3 of those, too. Yeah, Axe Grinder 3 was shot. That was a tough one to shoot. So David Sterling had... Joe was working on it, and he was working on it through David. And David goes, "Well, what about this guy Joe Voegele that did this film?" Because I had briefly I had texted Dave, and I had sent him a screener of Specimen 6, and so he talked to Joe, and he said, "Well, why don't you do something with him?" And because we knew each other, and he was trying to get this movie done. It was very difficult because it was still in the middle of a pandemic, and everybody was, not wanting to be near each other. So. That's why it came into the idea of Joe shooting half of it there, and I shot half of it up here where I was, and blended together to make it look like one, like we all shot it in the same place. I don't think I can hear anybody anymore.
Whoops, that's my bad, dude.
Oh, there we go.
For your courtesy, but it stitches together lovely. Like I watched it again last night. And
awesome.
Man, dude, I really enjoy that movie, especially your bits of it too, watching it with this interview in mind. There's some Friday the 13th in there.
Yeah, I still some kills there. Yeah.
I love when you turn with that rod towards the camera, like it hypes me up every time that I see it.
Friday the 13th part 3D. Yeah.
Do you ever wear your hat like that sometimes just for fun? I loved it. The drifter hat is like the best touch of the movie, I think.
Joe sent me a bunch of the props. He sent me the drifter hat, and because we had to blend everything together, and so I shot a lot of that stuff. When you see him, like when it looks like the insane asylum, that was shot at my job, which is a car dealership, and I was shooting on my lunch breaks. And then I'd get off of work and I'd go actually shoot other stuff for Dark Zone 13 Part 2. So I'd be shooting back and forth on both those features at the same time.
One of my favorite friggin' things in the movie is that mental patient ward sign taped like, it's the best thing ever, dude.
I was thinking that looked like a garage there sort of thing that we were hanging out at the room that they were in.
That's where they keep them, isn't it? I mean, that's, so my question was more of a technical one following up Cody's stuff. And that's sort of what sort of cameras have you been using? Did you start with a particular camera? I know nowadays it's a lot of cell phone footage shot and interspersed within stuff, but what's been your main go-to rig, I guess, for shooting a lot of
my main go-to rig, I'll show you real quick here. So I just bought a new one, but this one's my old one. It's I'm actually kind of a Luddite when it comes to cameras and technology, but I got this old Canon here. This is the same one I shot The Last Temptation of Bible Boy on, and I shot everything up through Axe Grinder 3 and maybe 1 or 2 things after that. And so it's just this old Canon, whatever the heck it is. I honestly, it EOS Rebel T3. And so that's like 8-9 years old. I've been shooting most everything. But then I just bought this fancy, a little smaller one, an EOS M50, which costs about $1,000. So that's all I use. I don't go super fancy. It was really funny. I went to this one of the Crypticons, and Joe was on the panel actually, and I was watching the panel, and it was how to do it yourself, make your own movie in a low budget movie. And so Joe's sitting up there, and I know Joe makes his movies for about the same as me, which is basically about 50 cents for this or that, and whatever you have going behind. So so let's say Specimen 6 cost me about $1,500 to make. And that's about most of my features cost about $1,500, give or take. And this other filmmaker was sitting next to Joe, and somebody asked them like, well, what equipment do you use? So they asked him her the same question you just asked me, and how much does it cost you? And she goes, well, if you want to go rent, you got to rent a camera and rent these lights and do this, then I like using this thing, and it generally costs around about $2,000-$3,000 to rent this, and then you have to do this. And our short film ended up costing probably about $20,000. And then Joe's got this look on his face,
just
like
immediately removes it from the accessibility of the
exactly. I was like,
question,
that was interesting. I was like, so I'm always saying, it's like, when it comes to making movies, it's just whatever camera's on hand. A lot of stuff that you see in my film, I might be out and about with just my phone, and I'll see something and I'll pull out my phone and be like, oh, that'd be a perfect insert shot.
Yeah.
And so it's just whatever. So I got this that's the most expensive thing I got, is that $1,000 camera I just bought. But I needed to get
similar to the camera that you're holding in the thumbnail that I made. Might even be the same one.
I think, the one so the thing, the thumbnail there is from Bikini Bible Babes of the Dead, or The Damned, whichever way you want to. I never had an official name for it, but it's on.
I love both of them.
I think they both work, but I never came down with one name. And I think Tony.
The Damned sounds more metal, so obviously
right?
I'm leaning towards that one. But
I forget what it's called. I think they just call it Bikini Bible Babes on there. But so that one was shot on the same old camera, my 8-year-old camera or 10-year-old camera that I shot Bible Boy on. So that one was specifically Tony had commissioned me to film that movie, to make that movie. I remember he asked me, it had to be kind of 90s era. Try not to have any modern cell phones and things, this and that. And so, one of my favorite genres was always the bikini Babes films that were on USA Up All Night. And so I thought, well,
they are classic.
That and zombies. So that's where that came from.
I think that's an element of schlock these guys haven't really dabbled in too much, but I'm hoping to introduce them to like the Beach Blanket Bingo Bikini Babe type movies where it's or nudie cuties they called them for a while back in like the day. Herschel Gordon Lewis did a couple of them. It's good stuff. It's not the same kind of schlock we typically dabble in, but to his point, you don't need a fucking fancy camera. You could probably dig through your parents' attic and find like a VHS camcorder and just make a movie on that if you really need to. So,
I know a lot of people that still film on VHS cameras. I bought one, but unfortunately it doesn't work because I wanted to film something on it, but it's busted.
I'm hoping to. Thankfully, nowadays we have modern technology at our disposal, so you can sort of make it feel at least a little bit passable as VHS footage, even if you don't have it. But I prefer to shoot it through an actual.
Yeah, and it's like being on set, filming it like that too is kind of like part of the creative process as well. So it informs how you're going to shoot something and just different things in the mind. So there's this great guy that does Dungeon Entertainment. He does these like in his backyard sort of films. I saw him through Instagram, and he has this movie called E.T. and the Hooker Go to Outer Space. And he has another one where it's Jason Goes Back to Hell, and it's just a super gritty VHS stuff he shoots in his backyard. And I thought it was just pure art, and it's so grimy and gross, and I loved it. And I keep trying to like, man, I wish I could do something that grimy and gross. And just
you're speaking to my soul, my friend.
I think one of them's like, it says like, E.T. and the Hooker from Outer Space based on the book Marley and Me. And it's just like,
oh man, that's
funniest, most fucked up stuff. Yeah. So see Dungeon Entertainment, like this guy, I've got a bunch of his movies now. Is just, I want to get closer to that kind of fuck you to Hollywood sort of thing.
We need to get a bunch of people together and shoot a Mac and Me sequel. That's what has to happen.
Yeah, right.
I'm down all day. I'll start working on fashioning a Mac replica at some point.
It's like, why not do it? Just do it. You know?
I'll build her on top of that fucked up leech woman they sent me, Cody.
Yeah.
You'll be proud. So that's the end of my questions right there. I'm going to hand it back over to these dudes. Brandon, you've been sitting there pretty quiet for a while. You got anything you want to plug in here, bud?
I just had a couple things. I was trying to take notes. I wasn't even sure I was going to get in on this. And then like, oh, no, we're going to delay it a week. I was like, okay, well, I'll do extra research. One thing I thought was interesting is I was looking at special features and so on Dark Zone, and they were talking about a particular book that you had put together that Joe Sherlock had said he was using in some of his films that you had sent him.
Oh, yeah.
An Omnicom looking book. So what's there's got to be more of a story behind the book than what y'all had said, other than, hey, we put a neat looking book together. Do you have anything extra that you could throw in about how it was made or how you made it look? It looked pretty cool. I've seen it. I swear I've seen it before.
It's been in a lot of movies now. I just used it. So I used it originally. I had made it with John Stone, that on Last Temptation of Bible Boy, and what we did is we took just a regular old book, but then we used latex, and we so I'll tell you, the people that haven't seen any of my movies, what it is. So it looks like it's made out of human skin, and it has tattoos, and it's stitched together through metal and stuff like that. And it's a pretty cool looking book, I think. So we had so The Last Temptation of Bible Boy is about a bunch of these Bible camp counselors, and they're all kind of just idiots that smoke pot and drink too much, and they just want to party and fucking stuff like that. And so one of them, John's character, so I acted in as well, and John and I play the real just bumbling drunk people. And Johnny, his story in it is that he found this book at an old antiques dealer or an old bookstore, and he had stolen it because the old lady there wouldn't sell it to him. And he says that he had found a recipe in it that is for beer, and it has a bunch of weird ingredients, but it was beer. So we have the homemade beer, which is everybody drinks the beer, and then Amy Christine Moline reads the spell, and then it turns them into demon gods from the outer space, something. I don't know. It really had no story. It was just stupid, fun stuff. And so the book itself we made for that movie, and we had taken latex, and we had put acrylic paint to make it look like that kind of skin tone, dark skin tone. And we painted out lots of sheets of it on glass, and then we peeled it off of there, and then we cut it up, and we literally stitched it together ourselves with the metal. And it was hard as hell. It took us several days to get it done. And then we glued all that once it was done onto the book, and then I painted on the tattoos and everything like that. And then Joe Sherlock loved it, and so I sent it to him, and he's put it in, I don't know how many of his movies now, 4 or 5 or 6 movies. And I just recently got it back, and I just recently used it in a film shoot maybe a month and a half ago.
That thing must be pretty sturdy going back and forth like that.
It is a pretty sturdy book, actually. Yeah, it's the latex hasn't broken down, surprisingly.
It sounds like a lot of craftsmanship went into it. I mean, for all intents and purposes, you guys basically made strips of latex flesh, and then
we did. Yeah, that's part of the fun of the job, is kind of like figuring out how to make this stuff, because I had no idea how I was going to make it until we did. And so we've had some failed experiments, and we've had other things that just kind of turned out pretty cool otherwise. And so like the doll in Dark Zone 13, I made that. And
yeah, that's a solid doll, to be sure. I like it.
Thank you.
How important, as a spin-off question, how important would you say reusing props, the ability to do that, is when you're doing these kind of movies? I mean, I imagine in the long run, if you can use something several different times, like you have with that book, or like Joe's been able to do with that one particular corpse prop that he has, it probably is a good cost-saving measure to have a ton of props that you can repurpose.
It's extremely important, because what we do costs so much money. So every time we do make a book or something like that, that's going to cost a pretty penny, maybe 60. That probably cost me $50 to kind of, put together and everything with all the materials. And so you're going to want to reuse that. And I used that, the corpse that Joe uses. We just used that a month and a half ago when I was shooting with Joe and everybody. So I had the privilege of using that in my own film. And
I'd just like to meet it one day in person.
Yeah, it's heavy. It's really heavy. I've had to carry that around on different sets, and it hurts your shoulders a little bit, but you got to carry it around like a lady. And
as you should.
Yeah. And
been a lady on several occasions, I feel like.
It has. It goes back and forth. Yeah, it goes back and forth. And in my movie, it's a guy. And let's see. So it's very important. Like my garage, I have this huge stand-up thing filled with props that I've used or haven't used yet. In Joe's garage, like I was talking about pre-show, is just props galore that you end up reusing, or you find something. I have a bunch of stuff that I just find. Like I did when I was doing Bikini Bible Babes. There's a part where all the zombie bikini babes are ripping off people's faces and dicks and everything like that. And that was actually a bag of dicks and skin and stuff like that I had acquired through a nursing program through somebody that I knew. They go, well, could you use a big bag of this stuff? And I said, I could. I don't know when, but I'll take it. And so,
it was actual dicks?
Well, what they were was they're nursing dummies that nurses would practice on the students. It looked really real. So yeah, I got a bunch of dicks like floating around.
He literally owns a bag of dicks. So if you're
I
hungry,
I do, yeah. And I got really weird, like small little baby things. Yeah, it's crazy. So it's whatever. If you see it and you're like, I could probably use that at some point. And so I got a huge thing out there in the garage that's filled with that stuff, and here in my office.
And there's a lot to be said for, stockpiling that stuff, for refurbing it. If you can get like junk at Spirit Halloween and then, add to it or mess with it, it's like an arsenal of shit you can continuously use in movies. I don't have any myself because I don't make movies yet, but I imagine there is going to be a point where a good portion of my garage is full of just assorted limbs and testicles. Oh, yeah. It seems to be the route that you have to take with it. And according to stuff up differently, each time. And then when you see that corpse in Joe's movies, it's almost like an extra cast member. Mm-hmm. Like it's to that point where you've seen it so much that you look forward to seeing it, just like you look forward to seeing Dale or any of the other people that are in the movies. So Cody, you got anything else for him? According to Rooney in the house.
Yeah. According to her, they were hot dog flavored.
They were okay. Yeah. So I covered Donna and hot dogs in that, or I covered myself in hot dogs in that one. So Donna Rooney was in my Bikini Bible Babes. She was also in the other film that was on Topless Tory, and then Joe had a film in that one too. And but in Bikini Bible Babes, it was very obviously hot dogs because it's something that we had done in The Last Temptation of Bible Boy, and it was like at the last minute I was like, fuck it, just grab a pack of hot dogs and put it on my belly. And then I had all these women like grabbing and eating hot dogs off of my belly, and it's just ridiculous. I've done it for other films. I have a zombie film that I just finished that's going to be coming out sometime in the new year that I do the same thing in one of those shorts.
Hot dogs are pretty tasty too in a pinch, and they're one of the most portable foods in the world.
Oh.
Donna is a highlight a lot of the times. And
Donna's
her character in several of your guys' films.
Yeah. And let's see, what was the thing I was about to say about hot dogs? Oh, funny thing. So Axe Grinder 3 story. So there's a part where they have the two hikers that are going through the woods and they're arguing and bickering back and forth and stuff. That's Michelle and Philip. And so the script itself had like just this vague that Joe had. It was more of like a treatment. The script itself, some scenes were a little bit more detailed, and others were like two people arguing in the woods. They get killed, this and this and this. And so I went out there with Michelle and Philip, and they were kind of improvising all that stuff. And I was digging around, and I had grabbed a pack of hot dogs just for any old reason, maybe because I was hungry or something. And or maybe I was thinking, I don't know how I'm going to kill you yet, but maybe this will be your guts. And so Philip started improvising behind the scenes with his hot dog, and I said, go with it. And so there's that whole little bit where he pulls out the hot dog and
it's my favorite thing in the movie, dude.
Yeah, that's all Michelle and Philip. I just pointed at the camera, and I was trying not to laugh behind the scenes. So that was them just
And the logic of it is sound. Like, just because we're going on a hike together doesn't mean I brought rations for all of us. This isn't some covered wagon shit. Like, you can bring a backpack yourself. Bring your own fucking granola bars. Like, I got hot dogs for me.
And then in
my mind, when I'm watching it, I imagined that you had an actual pocket dog or something on set. And you're like just munching on one, and then the idea came from that. But this is also good information.
It was vaguely like that. Yeah, it was just I put it in my backpack because I didn't know what we were gonna do yet. So.
They're so portable. Am I the only person in the world who's ever just eaten a hot dog naked on the go? I mean, I feel like not.
I do it all the time when you're hungry enough. Yeah. I had this time that I went on this hiking trip.
Like a real sweaty Slim Jim,
Yeah. I went on this hiking trip one time with my buddy Jeremy, and it was up this steep mountain in the middle of a rainstorm, and I hated it. He had convinced me to do it, and I'll probably never go hiking like that again. Middle of a rainstorm, and the rain was coming down like quarters, and we're hiking up this mountain all day long. And so by the time we get up to the top of the mountain, it's the middle of the night, pouring down rain. We get the tent set up, and I'm huddled and I'm freezing inside this tent, and the only thing we have in there to eat is a pack of raw hot dogs. And so just to keep warm, we don't have a fire, so I'm shoving all these hot dogs in my mouth just to try to get some food to keep warm and everything. So yeah, I mean, hot dogs are the best thing for, keep them around.
Joe's over there. I like them raw and wriggling, fucking just eating those hot dogs.
That's why I was shaking and shivering in the middle of the night eating hot dogs. It was terrible experience.
That sounds miserable. But, the added thing is that hot dogs are already uncomfortably wet.
Yeah, so exactly.
That's the part of it that makes it the ideal food to eat in the trenches like that. Like, it's just already soggy, man. So that's pretty much all I got on that one. You guys got to...
I have a hot dog related question.
Ask it, please. This is exactly what we need right now.
So normally when you go into these and I think about people who are directing a particular movie, you think, what would this monster do against this monster? And of course, there's always the similarities with Axe Grinder to Camp Blood. So who do you think, so instead of a fight, who would win in a hot dog eating contest? Out of the two villain characters from those series, do you think like the Camp Blood, like we'll say the 666 one, that seems to be the most prominent one, versus your version of the Axe Grinder?
Who would consider? I think maybe my killer, Freddie Palmer. I think he would probably win because knowing myself, and I played the character for half the film, I can eat a lot of hot dogs in one sitting. So I'm betting on myself for that one.
Yeah, and if we know anything too about Freddy's existence as opposed to maybe some of those clowns, is that Freddy's probably eating a miserable hot dog in a rainstorm as well.
Oh yeah.
So, I feel like it comes more naturally to those boys than it does. Suck down a tube steak under a thunderstorm. That's survival right there, my friends. What is your preferred hot dog toppings? That's a good question to take this.
Sauerkraut and mustard.
My friend, that is maybe a little mayo if you're feeling greasy.
I don't do mayo.
I fucks with that, but the sauerkraut, man, is it truly is a treat. I think a lot of people steer away from sauerkraut because it's kind of musky. But you should try it. And if you're in the mood for some different flavored sauerkrauts, check out Kaylin and Kaylin. Hopefully they can sponsor us and send us some pickles at some point. That would be amazing. But they make a delicious line of sauerkraut that I have sampled recently.
I'll give it a shot. I love sauerkraut.
Honey mustard, fucking sauerkraut, dude.
Yeah.
No, I'd give it a try.
Oh, man. A fork full of fucking sauerkraut when you're drunk in like the night are the best things in the world.
Yeah.
And hot dogs. You don't even need the bun anymore. If you're like fucking drunk at 2 a.m. and you just have a hot dog and like a fork with some fucking sauerkraut, you're good.
Yeah, dude.
So my question as a follow-up to kind of generally a lot of the stuff we've been talking about is, you did several projects. Obviously, you started with your first one and you've worked into several different ones at this point. What was the stage where you felt like you were kind of through the motions of trying your hand at it or whatever, and you felt like you actually knew what you were doing? So I guess the best way to put it was like, when did you stop feeling like you were just playing at it, and then you felt like you were actually making a movie? Like, oh, we're making a proper movie here.
Yeah, like I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question because I did my first film, and then I think I hadn't done anything after Bible Boy until maybe 2 years later. I did like a very, very short called Let's Play Dolls. And then that was just fun to do on a weekend. It's just like a shitty little movie you can see on the Specimen 6 DVD. And then I think after that, and then I did The Doll on Dark Zone 13. So Joe had called me up about Dark Zone 13 and asked me like, hey, I'm putting together this anthology and I got this script. It's kind of simple enough. Do you think you can film it? So I had to learn a lot from Dark Zone 13. not, because I had only done a couple things, and really I had learned what not to do on a bunch of stuff, but not what to do. And so Dark Zone 13, the doll, when I was filming that, it took us about 3 different weekends, and I had to learn how to make a shower scene, which I had never shot a shower scene before, but it's in, every Joe film, and I had to figure out there's a literal math to do it.
There's a science to it, people.
There is a science, and I'm not even joking. So I had actually with Ruby Solace, I had shot this shower scene, and it's difficult enough for me because I got like a bad back and bad knees, and you got to be in pretty good shape to do these things. Just like get down on your knees and then go up and twist and do all this other stuff. And I had shot this shower scene, and I was looking at the dailies for it. I thought, this is terrible. I can't. How does Joe do it? And so I texted Joe. It's like, I shot this thing. It's not working. Could you tell me how do I shoot a shower scene? And so he sent me this detailed how-to list. He's like, you move up, you turn right, you have your actor turn this way, you move up, you do it this way, and it's A, B, C, D, E, E.
Banging out the coverage, getting it done. So all the angles.
Yep, and then you got to make sure you got your inserts of the drain, of the shower itself, the turning it on, taking the clothes off to get it into the shower.
Beautiful. So, once I saw your guys' behind the scenes thing talking about that on Dark Zone 13, I started looking at the Joe Sherlock shower scenes, and I was like, this is fucking glorious, And then you look at other movies where they waste so much fucking time on shower scenes, and they just do it so clumsily. I mean, Joe really needs to take that and make it a course that he teaches to.
He should. I think, it's a good thing. I probably won't be doing any more shower scenes personally, but I've done enough of them.
You gotta break our heart, Voegele.
Yeah, sorry, man. I got a couple movies coming out in the next year that I have some shower scenes in, but going forward after that, I'm kind of
I got pretty big boobs, man. We can put me in one of those,
In that case, I always thought it was like, why not go for the, try to go for the beefcake, not the cheesecake, and kind of give that whole other
bro, that dad bod.
Yeah, look at the dad bod going on. I would probably do that just because it'd be funny, but honestly, it's like part of it's like my body, and part of it's like I kind of want to move forward doing some more artistic stuff, and I love doing like shower scenes and everything, but you do it so many times that you have to you'd have to do it slightly different in some way to make it more interesting. Joe's
already kind of cornered the market on it, in my opinion.
Joe has, and you can't beat Joe Sherlock for his shower scenes. And he has this one great one that he did, I think, in Channel 99 or Joe.
What's
which one?
The one where everyone has one.
Where it's actually he reverse engineered it, and so the gal gets in the shower, but it's in a spaceship, and then like the wind is blowing up, and so it was just like he had taken it, reverse engineered it, and then did this amazing thing. I was like, all right, I can't do anything else with the shower.
He's done it. It's been done.
Yeah. So I've got it, I've even got banks of like shower scenes like banked up on my computer that I can just put into random things.
Bro, you know what's an untapped market? Sauna scenes.
This is, I don't know. Joe's got a few sauna scenes too. Yeah.
But has he taken it to that level? You could be the Padawan that becomes the master.
I think maybe you need to be I think maybe you need to do that. I think when you start doing your movies.
All right, you guys down to get sweaty? Here, let's shoot some sauna. Let's do it.
So yeah, back to the. I forget what the original question was, but I think as far as knowing so we were talking about Dark Zone.
When you found your footing, kind of, when you felt
so when I was doing Dark Zone,
now I know what I'm doing.
It wasn't Dark Zone 13. I was still learning how to do a lot of stuff in that one, and so there was an interesting. So I was learning how to do the shower scene, but that was also like just kind of B movie. It was Dark Zone 13. Okay, it was. Yes. Oh, it was the scientific formula for Dark. Yeah, Joe's saying it right there, and that's right. Yeah. And and so we shot it, and it's just kind of like getting to know the images in your head of how to put something together, how to do the shower scene. And a shower scene is like, doesn't have to be the shower scene. It could be something else. Just kind of knowing where you're learning how to put together a scene. Dark Zone 13, I learned a lot, and Joe was teaching me a lot as I was doing that. Like I said, like he'd text me this big thing to tell me how to do it. And so finally that came together. John did an edit, and then we sent that to Joe, and then he did, and then Joe did the final edit with the final music and stuff like that. And
Wearing those
so
vibes.
when I finally knew, I think what I was feeling like I'm showing up and I know what I'm doing was after I had finished Axe Grinder 3 and Dark Zone 13 Part 2. So not even the Specimen 6. So after I had done those, because I was shooting those back to back, where I was shooting on my breaks, and I was going over to Ruby Solace's house to go shoot Dark Zone 13 2. And then the next day I would be shooting in the woods with Michelle and Philip on Axe Grinder 3. And so by the time I was done with both of those things and I was editing things myself by that point, that's when I knew I could sit down with a script, I could break it down, I could show up the next day, and I'd feel very comfortable knowing I would get my coverage. And I had just a way of shooting by that point. You have to kind of get your own way of shooting. You can ape somebody else and learn from somebody else so much before you end up developing your own way of shooting.
Yeah,
and
you got to get your own method to the madness.
You do. And the very first thing, I always show up on set an hour or two before everybody else does, whether that's at my house, I'm already there, or if I go over to somebody else's house, or if I'm in the woods, I always spend my first hour getting insert shots, so I don't have to worry about those insert shots later on in the day. So like just shooting like a leaf or shooting a light or shooting traffic going by, because you always got to have those cut too. That's a B movie thing too. You have to have those insert shots after the fact, and they always end up saving your ass in post, because you're like, oh fuck, I forgot to get this thing, and now it's snowing outside, and I shot this thing in the fucking summer, so always get those insert shots to cut to, like, this is the house they're staying at and stuff like that. And now I have a way that I show up every day on set. And so it wasn't until after Axe Grinder 3 and Dark Zone 13 2 that I was finally feeling this is what I do, and I know how to do it. So
of what I've seen of your stuff, that makes sense too. It feels like it was gelling a bit more. You were becoming, especially on Axe Grinder 3, it feels like you're becoming a bit of your own dude outside of just doing stuff for Joe. Like, as much as we all love Sherlock, and Sherlock loves you, I'm sure, you are your own dude. And that was also a follow-up question I have, about your future plans of stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked about my future plans.
Yeah.
So I did do Specimen 6 was, I was still asking Joe about certain things as far as props and stuff, and then we had some really good guts on Specimen 6 that we had actually made out of sheep intestines, and so we had used literally real guts on that film. And so I don't always use hot dogs, but sometimes I do. And
they eventually became hot dogs if they would have been left in the butcher shop.
Exactly, right? And so that's when I started kind of like picking up on my own artistic kind of the images I had in my head that were kind of like that I wasn't aping somebody else, that I was like, this is what I want to get out on screen, and I want to do a little David Lynch, but I want to filter it through myself to get to that thing. And it's more, that's when I started paying more attention to the mood that I was seeing in a scene and not the scene itself. So when I was shooting Dark Zone 13 Part 2 for Suburban Satanic, I was rewatching a scene from Twin Peaks Firewalk with Me over and over and over, the scene with David Bowie. Now, the two things have nothing in common other than I was trying to absorb the feeling of the scene and then interpret that through the script that Joe had given me to do. And so you're talking about the future, though. So the future, because I go on these rambles, I got a couple things coming out through Sterling Entertainment, through David Sterling's producer on a couple of my new projects coming out. I'll say this because Joe already talked about it back on his episode with you guys, that he's doing a Zombie Chronicles and I'm doing a Zombie Chronicles.
Fucking amazing. I can't wait. And
it's that the Zombie Chronicles is 100% my thing. I wrote it with my creative partner, Amy Christine Moline. And it is not like any other, like my movie will feel completely different than Joe Sherlock's, I guarantee you. And my stuff has more stuff, like I was telling Cody before on the text message, mine has more in common with Ruben and Ed than it does like Dawn of the Dead, and so it's very strange, and it's because I'm kind of at the point where I want to do very different stuff from one thing to the next. And my zombie movie is 3 shorts with a wraparound, and the wraparound I think is a pretty goddamn. So we're going. calling back to the beginning of this episode with wraparounds, I think the wraparound has to be really important and really, it has to be its own short, its own story for it to work. And it can't just be a couple, some guy saying, now we showed you this and we're going to move on to this. And you're like, why even tell me this? So
ideally the end of an anthology movie ends with the conclusion of the wraparound.
Exactly. It's its own thing. Like you were talking about with High 8, that had its own wraparound with their hiking around. It's been a while since I watched it. And actually Tony Mazziello worked on that film too. So that was another thing. And so I talked a little bit with Tony about that. But so with my Zombie Chronicles, I have a wraparound. And then I have a whole new project that I'm editing right now for David Sterling. That's it's a slasher film, but it's the beginning of a new franchise. So it's not Camp Blood. It's not Axe Grinder. It's a brand new franchise for David Sterling. And I can't really say anything about that, but I was telling Cody, it's what I like to call the Avengers of slasher films.
Yeah, he relayed that message, and man, did it make several appendages perk up in attention. I am looking forward to that greatly. I think that's going to be amazing. And just especially after watching Axe Grinder 3 so many times in the last couple of weeks, man, am I just looking forward to seeing like whatever slasher stuff you've done outside of the Sherlock stuff. Because again, we all love Joe Sherlock, but I think it's important that you have your own identity, and I think it's cool that you didn't immediately just go into like going through the motions of aping Sherlock. You compliment him very well. And that's not just us blowing smoke, man. I mean, you have your very own unique identity that, gels really well with the Sherlock stuff. It's not that you're just a Sherlock clone. And I'm sure that there's probably people that, only know your stuff through the Sherlock shit that would probably...
Which is perfectly fine with me because I love everything I've done with Joe. So
yeah, there's worse things to be called in the world than, Sherlock mini-me or whatever. But
hey, I like being a little Joe. It's good for me. Yeah. Not to mention I've acted for Joe in a few different things as well. So I also act in Dark Zone 13-2, Channel 99, things like that.
Well, one thing I wanted to touch on before we move too far in towards the finale of this is your involvement in Project 88.
Okay.
Something that I had not noticed about on your IMDb because they've changed a little bit about how it is on mobile now. So like I didn't see that credit until I finally was just clicking around on it this morning. But you're involved in Project 88, Back to the Future Part 2 with 2 O's, kind of.
Yeah, that ended up being a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be.
Right. So how did that come about? I mean, are you yourself particularly like a huge fan of the Back to the Future franchise? Or?
Yeah, I like him as much as the next guy that grew up in the 80s, but I wasn't, what happened there. And I had seen Back to the Future too. I don't know how many dozens of times, including in the theater. But I wouldn't say I get a stiffy over it every time I hear about it. But
I prefer the first one, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I mean, it can't be the first. I like part 2. I love and part 3 and stuff. Okay, Project 88. What it is dozens of filmmakers from around the world took 50 some seconds of the film and they recreated it in some way, and then they put together the whole film using all of those little shorts. It was the very it was the very beginning of the pandemic, and we just needed something to do, and I was talking to Tanya Atomic, and she said, hey, here's this thing I read about, and she said, you want to do one of the shorts with me? And so we just kind of out of the necessity of needing to do something, she had shot with
creative juices flowing.
Yeah, just to keep them going, and just not like, because I hate being stagnant. And so I shot my stuff like I had made all these. I had borrowed the car from somebody at work that had a miniature, and then I made these little cat pictures to kind of mimic Tanya's actual cats. And so she would film her cats in this Barbie thing going around the place, and then I shot my stuff. And that's actually, what's interesting about that Project 88 was, which I would, the thing that I would tell any aspiring filmmaker, do-it-yourself filmmaker, is if you don't really know how to put together a scene, study one scene and watch it 100 different times and break down every single shot that it takes and try to recreate that thing, because then you'll really know how to put together a scene after the fact. So that was a very important learning moment for me. Was I was in my garage on my knees pushing this car around the place trying to get this just perfect shot, and then but I was also watching on my phone which way does the car go past the camera here, and which way does it do this, and I'd watch the scene over and over and over and over. And so yeah, that's what it was. It's a Project 88. They put it all together and they put it online. I don't know how many millions of views that it ended up getting, but it ended up being quite the thing.
And it's a solid novelty project, man. I mean, of all the like pandemic projects I've heard of, Project 88 sounds like the most intriguing. I haven't seen it yet.
It got a ride up in like Collider or Variety or something, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I heard about it. It was definitely something I was aware of. I just haven't gotten around to checking it out yet. But is it safe to say that taught you a lot about scene composition and things that you would use going forward in filmmaking?
Absolutely. There's two scenes that have taught me a lot about scene composition and things like that. And as you're making movies, you're kind of training your brain how to think in movie shots. And so every time I'm looking at a script or I'm about to break down a script, that's something really important to know is how is your mind perceiving this page that you're reading and how you're going to break it down into shots. And so there's two scenes that were very important, three scenes. So one being the shower scene for Dark Zone 13. So I'd watch a lot of Joe's shower scenes to try to figure that out as well. And then I thought I had it down, but then I had to ask him for the formula. And so I got the formula and I was able to figure it out. The second scene was the Project 88 scene. And so I watched that over and over. And I actually storyboarded out every single shot from that 55 seconds or whatever. And so I had these storyboards of those shots and programmed that in my brain. And the third one is the scene from the Godfather where he goes into the restaurant and kills the dude. I watched that, I have no hundreds of times over and over and over and over. I broke that down. I didn't even have to do anything about it. I simply wanted to learn what is the greatest scene in modern cinema. And it's that scene from The Godfather. And so I learned it. I broke it down. And so that's what I would say to anybody that's trying to make a movie. Go watch one scene 100 times and figure out how it works. And then go make your movie.
Yeah, it's I'm obviously like not even a novice. I have no experience really with making movies. I made a short film once and it was kind of cool to show to my friends.
But you did it. See, so you're a filmmaker. You did it once, you did it.
There you go. But it seems similar to writing a song, which I have done several times, and so you got to figure out how you can have a real cool idea for this piece or this piece or this piece. But if you don't have a sense of how to fit those together in a rhythm to make one continuous shot or one continuous song, it's going to sound like ass. There's only so much magic you can do in editing to make it all fit together. And then at the end of the day, you're going to have to, it's going to have to perform as one solid sequence, whether as a song or as a scene in a movie. It's going to have to flow. And if storyboarding seems like, even if you're bad at drawing, storyboard your shit. Even if it's stick people, storyboard it out and make it to where you've kind of got the beats of the thing, I think, mapped out in your mind. It sounds like you're talking about before you're even shooting it, really. So that when you're shooting it, you can perform it live. It's like guitar tabs or something. Make it a thing that you can put together in sequence in front of people, and then it's going to play well on a screen or on an album or wherever. So that's it for that portion for me. You guys got anything you want to pepper in there? I see Brandon sitting over there. That cat's looking out there into that nature. Thank you for providing the nature tonight too, man. We're not just basement dwellers. There's a tree right there. You guys got anything else you want to toss on the heap here?
Brandon, you go ahead. I got quite a bit.
Thanks for coming on, Joe. I think this has gone.
Oh, it's my pleasure, guys. Yeah, my pleasure.
I mean, I've only got two things that I have in total. One's more of an ending thing, but the other one is a Dark Zone 13 question.
Okay.
So, of course, I know the doll, for instance. I think that was written by Joe Sherlock, and then you directed it and kind of made it your own there. So, what about in the second one, the driver?
That's a good. I got a story.
How much of that was you? Was that just like, I'm going to get in this and we're going to do it? Because it to me, it actually brings the movie. I love looking for the driver character throughout this movie.
You ever seen a greased up weasel? Yeah. So
hope you enjoyed your tots.
Yeah. So that's a good one. So that was so I went over to Joe's house. And Donna was there, Donna Rooney, John Bowker, and myself. And Joe had this vague kind of idea of what he wanted the wraparound to be, and it was going to interconnect with the thing that he had done with his son Connor. And so we had sat down before we filmed it, and it was all, we wrote it that day and performed it all that day, and we did it all together. So it was a really interesting way to do any filmmaking. So Donna, John, Joe, myself sat around the computer and we were telling jokes and kind of coming up with more of the story together. So I came up with some of the jokes, like the tots. The thing about when the the couple is bickering and one says this about the garbage going out on Tuesdays, that's something myself and my wife always fight about. We don't fight, but I'm like, I always forget when the garbage goes out, and she always says it's on Tuesdays, like it has been for the last 5 years. I said, write that down, because my wife is always yelling at me about that.
Thursdays down here, but I will forget every single week.
And I do. And so we were just pitching ideas, and we were having a good time writing it, and then. So we'd write something, and then Joe would type out the stuff on cue cards, and then we'd go and we'd film a little, and then maybe come up with some more stuff. And as far as like the whole driver thing, when it came to the actual driving around shot, it was the hottest day of the year, by the way. Also, it was miserable filming this thing. It was like over 100 degrees, and we were burning up everywhere. And so Joe had this idea in his mind for the speech that the guy was giving, and we went to go get pizza for lunch. And Joe had this idea for what he wanted the guy to say at the beginning about being a delivery guy and how to, because he had talked to somebody that actually was an Uber driver, and this is what he said. So I sat down while we were eating pizza, and I wrote that whole monologue out, and then I went outside while everybody's still eating their pizza, and then I rehearsed it a few times, and then we went and we shot it 20 minutes later, and we shot it twice, and it sounded pretty much the same both times. So that was, we made it up that day. We all wrote it together. It's a great, you end up shooting with Joe, you're going to end up shooting in ways you never thought.
Such a series of events. I enjoyed all of the little vignettes that character was in.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah. That's about the only time that I actually enjoy acting anymore, is if I'm working with Joe and Joe's directing. That's when I enjoy acting. Anytime I end up acting in my own thing, I just play jerk off guy number one, because like it's that last minute thing, and I just have to have that jerk off joke in there. So I'm like, I'll be the horny guy that jerks off. So yeah, that's the only other like part that I play. Yeah.
And watching the behind the scenes from that, and just having like Donna and John deliver those scenes and trying not to laugh while they're doing it was just their little disgruntled husband and wife throwing their little shots at each other. Like that was definitely funny.
Oh, I think for most of this stuff, no matter how much I helped, I would need to be well away from the shooting when it happened, because there's just, I'm gonna laugh, you know.
It was super fun. We were all laughing super hard the whole time. So that is like, I think I was covering my mouth when they were doing their stuff.
There's a special quality to what you guys are doing out there, man. I mean, these guys, I'm on record many times of saying how much I do not like acting or being in front of the camera, but Joe's the first person to make me consider getting into like a Yeti suit, and
I've done that
being
for
ridiculous, you know. And I feel like I'll be out there with you guys soon enough doing some of that.
Yeah, I love it, dude.
Other than that, I'm really mostly interested in helping behind the scenes. You know, I'll run around, I'll go get you guys' Krispy Kreme and coffee, and we'll do the damn thing. You know, I don't have any aspirations of getting in front of the camera unless I have to. But
Well, it's all about having
a lot
fun.
of these motherfuckers keep making me do it. So
Yeah.
I suppose I'll probably do more
It's
of
just
it
about
than I
having
plan.
fun. Just like if I were, I don't know, the second that it stops being fun, I wouldn't do it, you know. But I love being down on set with Joe and then acting for him and things like that. So that it's just always a blast and a good time to do that stuff. Well, acting in Channel 99 was a lot of fun, you know. And then you just get to like just do the coolest things. And yeah, you just kind of figure out, like, you know, the interesting thing about when you're making these movies is like when you're filming with your friends and everything is you kind of learn. Some people will be very gung-ho. They're like, oh, that sounds like the coolest thing. We can go to the movie set and we will just have fun all day and we'll go drink and smoke pot. And I always say, we're not drinking and smoking pot because we have a job to do. And then
I'm
they
not really down to do that while we're working.
Yeah. And then they stand there for 12 hours because there's a lot of waiting. A lot of people, they'll not show up the second time because they realize you have to have this crazy passion for it, and you also have to find the fun. Like I have to film. I have to be on set. It's like the greatest thing.
I feel like I would be one of those dudes just from my work experience where I would be like, all right, well, we're just standing around for like the next few hours till we're ready to do this. So what's every little thing I can find that needs to be done on set that can be done in this downtime while we're waiting, you know? And maybe will drink like a 6-pack of beer through the day while I do it, but that's a little different than, you know, just hanging out and shooting the shit. Like we're on the clock. And
yeah, well, I'm not saying that I've never had a beer while we were shooting a 12-hour thing. You know, I was like, man, it's hot out and I got to, you know, I want to have a beer. But
it would be my honor to bring you that beer. After I've swept up some shit and like
more than welcome to come shoot with me anytime. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be the gopher all day long. But I think that there's also, you know, I like to think that we could maybe inspire more people to get into that end of it too. Filmmaking isn't just what's in front of the camera, like, you know, who's writing or directing it. There's the people that help make the thing work. They grease the wheels, you know, and that's just as admirable as anything else.
Yeah, I have lots of like very dear friends that help me that they want to be on set and they'll run around and just do whatever. My friend Kat, she'll show up when she can and be my AD. And that's basically just running around yelling at people to come and do things for me, you know, because people just kind of meander off. And so you have to, sometimes it's nice to have that extra person to come and, you know, and so you're not yelling.
Like, yo, dude, we got to set this up over here for them.
Yeah. And so, yeah,
before you meander off, let's do productiveness real quick.
So, yeah, and I got lots of very dear friends that show up just because they love being on set. You know, it's when we're doing Joe's movies, we love being on set. We might be there for 12 or whatever hours. The last shoot that I did with Joe, I was directing and he was acting in it, but also helping me with camera work and stuff like that. Because I had put myself in as horny guy, jerk off guy number 1 again. And so he was helping me out with that. And we had put in a 12-hour day or more, something like that. And by the end of the day, we were just have fun, ignore the camera. You can do it. Yeah, see, Donna says that right there. And so by the end of the day, we were all sore. And you did I did the werewolf makeup for Channel 99. So yeah, jack of all trades thing. So you know, I do makeup occasionally as well. So, but
I don't know what this means right now, but 117.
I'm guessing that was the temperature.
We're cracking ourselves.
Oh, that's what the temperature was. Yeah, it was hot. It was a hot.
If it was during those heat waves, man, I feel you. That shit takes your breath.
Yeah, we were outside, inside. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, you got to have a real passion for it if you're going to be on set making no money for 12 to 14 hours and then you're walking away. And Joe and I were sitting there like, man, it wouldn't be great to take a break. And then a week later, I was like, man, I got to be back on set. This is fucking killing me. I got to go do something.
So you don't have that bug yet, but I like helping an event go off smoothly. Maybe it's time that I've done working at places, like I said, or like, you know, helping with other stuff community wise, but there's something special about just helping like a thing go off.
Yeah.
And picking up the loose edges, you know.
It's all about hanging out with friends with me. Basically, I'm writing a thing right now to do on New Year's. I don't have to do it, but I'm going to do it because I just want to hang out with my friends. So
right. So yeah, I think I kind of stepped on a Cody question when I segued us into this. You don't have to raise your eyebrows at me, motherfucker. I love you. Okay, get in there with
it. Hit that mute button and let me go for a ride for a minute.
I'm going to. I promise.
Since you brought it up, we're going to get to that part anyway. So tell me a little bit about the Scratch short for Channel 99.
Oh, okay. So Scratch, I play an every man sort of guy. I don't know, there's, I guess a little spoiler. I play this guy that his girlfriend ends up becoming a werewolf. That's, you know, and so I think I just wanted to go down and hang out with Joe and everybody. And he says, you know, well, while you're here, you know, you want to act in the movie? And I said, yes, of course I do. And so he had sent me the script a few days before, and I think we made. Oh yeah. So we did that, and then I did the other thing later. So yeah, he sends me the script, and then we go down there, and so Scratch is in Channel 99. I play this every day, every guy sort of thing. I get to work with Jackie Neiman Jones from Manos Returns. That was like a dream come true right there. I'm friends with her, of course, so we've hung out a few times, and we've been on set a couple times with her. She's so fun to watch and watch her act. I had seen her do something that she had actually acted with my wife in Things 5, and so that was before, and then I finally got to act with her there. I don't know. Scratch, it was fun. It was a 12-hour day. We busted our asses, and I was jumping back and forth between acting and then also putting makeup on Sabrina. So I did the werewolf makeup in that. I don't know. What was the question?
I was just going to ask you a little bit about it, and then what it was like acting alongside Jackie Neiman Jones.
It was awesome. Yeah, she's wonderful to act with. And I mean, a lot of it was like we were kind of reading some cue cards because sometimes you're just working so fast and you just get the script the day or two before. And so we do a little rehearsal, and then you read some cue cards, and then you joke around. And yeah, it was a really nice day. And I loved, I mean, I got to act opposite of a B movie legend. So, I mean, you can't ask for more than that.
Did Manos come up much? We just covered Manos yesterday, actually.
Oh, did you?
I think it's pretty fitting that you came on here afterwards, and you guys and Joe all have something.
You know, yeah, Manos pops up. I mean, Jackie's always telling stories, this or that about Manos, but it's always fun to pick her brain about that stuff, you know. And
she seems like such a rad fucking lady. Like her whole sense of style too, in that especially I forget what it's from because it shows up in another Sherlock thing, but that bit that she's doing in Axe Grinder 3 where she's like in the leather jacket walking through the door, like she looks fly as fuck, dude. Her whole kit is like something I aspire to, you know? And I'm like, oh,
Jackie is definitely like, you know, embodies cool, you know, when you're hanging out with her, and she's super like chill, drinking some wine with her, and maybe she's smoking a joint or something like that, you know, just a really
amazing.
Super cool.
That is so cool. Exactly what you want the little girl from Manos to be as an adult. It sounds amazing.
She's a super sweetheart too, just so fun. And we got to have breakfast together over at this last Crypticon as well, so that was really nice. So
what's her breakfast order like?
Oh, it was the same thing everybody got. It was that VIP with celebrity guest breakfast. Okay, there was no celebrities in that room, and 2, they subjected me to live improv, which I can't stand. And it was this very bland eggs and sausage, and so everybody just had that. Unfortunately, we couldn't actually order good food. It was just.
I feel like you guys are celebrities to us.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
But, you know, especially dudes like Joe and David. I find it ironic too that they both have like iconic hairdos. Like Joe's whole thing is like that badass helmet of like his hair comes back with those silver wings. Like he's like what's it, Polly from fucking Sopranos. Like that's how I feel like when I see Joe's hair. And then when you see David's, it's like that majestic mullet flowing over his fucking silk shirt. It's pretty majestic, you know?
Yeah.
It's you're in the presence for sure of B-movie royalty right there when you're at the Joe Sherlock, David Sterling like co-table that they had going on at Crypticon this last year. And David suckered me out of a proper $150.
He's good at selling movies. I got the same ones. I got the Camp Blood set
No
up
regrets.
and the Empire of the Apes set up there. So yeah, I buy plenty of his movies as well.
Yeah, by the time we were done, I was pretty sure I was going to pay for him to get a pedicure and then carry around in my backpack like Yoda on Dagobah all day.
Yeah.
Like it was.
It froze up.
Oh, well, I had one more question, and then that's it for mine that I know of.
Okay.
So just as kind of a weird aside, because I want to say I'm relatively new to seeing low budget creators. I mean, I've always been into B movies, Roger Corman, the classics, but it probably hasn't over the last maybe decade. Over the last decade, I usually I've gotten into more of the more personal aspects, I could say. Yeah. So out of the creators working today, Joe Sherlock aside, because of course he'd be number one right there. But would you think of three that you feel like are really good rising talents that you've really enjoyed?
Oh,
Good question, bro.
That's a good question. I would actually say you guys probably know more about micro budget horror films than I do because I don't get to watch as many these days as I would like. I don't know. I mean, up and comers. I don't know any up and comers. I tried to find more. When I first started going to Crypticon, there was a lot more of us hanging around doing that. And for some reason, there's like a lot less of us doing that at Crypticon nowadays. So I haven't really been able to meet any up and comers. I'm always trying to, other than Dungeon Entertainment, I would highly recommend that. That's a guy to keep an eye on. Unfortunately, I don't think he has a lot of support right now going on, but I would go out and get E.T. and the Hooker go to outer space or whatever.
Oh yes, that's such a
that would be the one. I'm sorry I don't have three, but that would be the one. Go Dungeon Entertainment, and then Jason Goes Back to Hell, and then he's got some other just weird shit. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
I mean, I've seen so much creativity in the space. That's the reason why I'm always curious, because lower budget usually forces creativity.
It does. I always say that the bigger the budget, like the less creative. I've met plenty of people, I guess, like through this, knowing people vaguely through the system that I'll text once in a while. But I know a lot of like the old pros and stuff like that. So like Ron Ford, I'm working with him on he has a thing that he helped me with on one of my Specimen 6 sequels. So you'll be seeing some of his stuff. And then John Ward over in Las Vegas, he's in my upcoming Zombie Chronicles film. So unfortunately, I don't know like a whole lot of like the up and comers. I just know a lot of the established guys. Unfortunately, I'd like to reach out. I mean, if anybody wants to make a movie or has made a movie, reach out to me. I'll try to tell you what I know.
There's I know there was one. I don't know if I counted low budget because it was on Shudder, but I mean, there was even some of the stuff I've seen. Like there was one thing, WNUF Halloween special that I saw. And then they managed to take a like modern film device and make it look so much like it was filmed back in the day, just by doing things like recording it on a VCR and then re-recording it just to make it look like that tape. It's amazing what people will do in these types of situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that goes back to just shooting stuff and I suppose making it look like that too, because on Topless Tory, Tony I shot them on digital. They looked all crisp on 1080. And then he took that stuff and he ran it through some filters to make it look like it was shot on VHS. I originally wanted to shoot those on VHS, but like I said, it's hard to get a VHS camera that works. And then I've looked all over the place. I just can't get one that, anywhere because people covet them. Guys like me, they covet them. So, yeah. Any other questions?
I do have actually a pretty big question for the final question here. I'm just trying to
7 inches.
What's that?
7 inches. That's all you're getting from me. Okay, what is it?
So if you had to, obviously you came up watching a lot of this stuff. You didn't just dive into it accidentally.
Okay.
So what would be your top 5 DIY horror flicks throughout the ages if you had to pick like a quick top 5 just off the top of your head? Like, what are 5 that influenced you, or ones that you particularly loved that got you into the whole scene to begin with? Because I'm pretty sure Joe Sherlock stuff wasn't the first low budget thing you saw where you're like, damn,
it wasn't.
This,
Yeah, it was not. I'm trying to think. I have so many movies that I've seen that, like, what are the ones that kind of, I mean, technically, like, Evil Dead was a do-it-yourself sort of thing.
Yep, that was the first time I became aware of that concept.
Yeah,
I mean, people like kids just making a movie and it being a movie.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely number one for me. And I think there was some early. God, I'm blank. I haven't had a lot of sleep. I'm sorry. I don't think I can answer this question as best as I could. Because I can't think of any names right now because my mind is just kind of.
I got a few more for you. So why don't we back pocket that and maybe
okay, yeah,
exactly. Great idea. Thank you, Cody, for saving the day.
I mean, Chris Seaver's up there with me too, so his shit's so fucking wacky. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Going back to Specimen 6, you had the short time for science.
Oh yeah. Okay. So
talk a little bit about that if you want.
I can tell you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Time for Science was written by Thomas Duder, author of The Things. He's a co-writer that I work with on some stuff. And that was we had written a bunch of stuff for the new Specimen 6s together, but he had created this character of Dr. Hellfire. And we have maybe 8 scripts that we plan on filming, but that was the first one that we filmed. And he kept yelling at me the whole time that we were prepping it because I had changed. He had this idea in his mind of what it was going to be. But when I read it, I saw it as this found footage sort of thing. And so Dr. Dr. P something Hellfire is this crazy mad scientist that has his sidekick Igor filming him as he's raising a demon because they want to fuck a demon. And so they have to sacrifice Asian dude to do it. And it was just for fun. It was I had made it because I wanted to make a movie, and Thomas had written it, and I had no idea what it was going to come through. And then I was working on the DVD with Tony, and I said, I got this whole short that I did, and I just want to make this DVD special. What do you think about me putting it on there? And then Tony loved it, and so we put it on there. Yeah, so there's no other place to watch it. So if you are able to get the new Blu-ray, or if he re-releases the DVD, that's where the Time to Science is. Yeah.
Which that had your buddy Jonathan. If you could give me a little bit more about him, because he pretty much steals the scene in anything he does.
Jonathan Bland. Yeah, so Jonathan Bland does. He was in Axe Grinder 3, and he was the guy that was sitting on the couch watching that
guy's straight up my spirit animal. I fucking love that dude.
So he's watching he's watching the movie on the TV that John Bowker is in, and then he's sitting there just like getting into it and everything like that. He's gonna love that. So I'll tell him that you call him his spirit animal. And I was shooting a movie with him earlier a couple of months ago, and he got really mad at me because I had this whole scene where I had a guy jerking off to this cam girl, and the cam girl was like calling him like a worthless loser, and he was crying when he was jerking off, and he kept. I gave him the script for it. He goes, "I ain't no simp. Fuck you." I was like, I don't know what that means, but and finally at the end of the day, I was like, okay, I'll rewrite it. I won't have you jerk off to this gal and cry.
That's fucking glorious, dude.
And but so Jonathan, he's gonna be in that. So Jonathan plays the Dr. Hellfire, and he's an Axe Grinder. And then if you notice, he is that's him 24/7. He does not turn down that volume of energy at all. So if you're around him at all, he's constantly going on and on and on and on. He's like a verified genius, but he has no filter on his mouth, so he's just constantly going on. And so all I have to do is put a camera on him and say, let's just take it down just a little bit, and then just to get that screen capture. He's also going to be, he acted in another thing that I wrote and directed called The Perfect Ratio, which will be out sometime in the new year.
Nice.
It was in an anthology. I don't know what the anthology is called anymore, but it's through John Ward's Dark Park Films, but also through Sterling Entertainment. And that one stars Tanya Atomic as well. We shot that a couple years ago, but Thomas is really good in that. It's more of a dramatic role, actually. Jonathan, I mean. And so yeah, he's that's him. So he's crazy. He's kind of he's a genius. He's a writer as well, and everything I do, I always try to put him in now, and he'll be in my big Avengers slasher film as a big role. So,
as he should. Well,
while
we're on the subject of him,
Waititi or whatever that dude is that is doing all that cool shit for Marvel.
Oh yeah, and when he gets killed, he's actually watching Bible Boy on that phone, and she's going Bible Boy, Bible Boy, Bible Boy.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the most I've seen of Bible Boy so far.
Yeah. You can buy that anytime through SOV Horror. That's like $8 through that.
Oh, it's gonna be on my next order. I got a big old SOV and sleaze box order that's gonna have to go down in my next pay period here.
Yeah, plenty of masturbation jokes in that one too.
Oh, yeah.
I'm hoping 10 years from now people will be like, oh, he's that director he's the jerk off guy. I'm like, yes, I am.
So any other questions for Joe, or you got any other submissions for your top 5 DIY horror flicks? You got to have some, man. If anything, we can do a Joe Sherlock list if we have to, since we're all fans of that.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much love everything that was done. I mean, I would say Odd Noggins. Go on Skullface Astronaut, get that. I
love that he's such a fan of Odd Noggins too, because you guys know well that I am on record many times as that being like one of my favorite Sherlock flicks.
I would say Blood Creek Woodsman is in my top one of my top 3 slasher films. I watch that one constantly.
It's great.
Let's see, kind of do it yourself. I mean, I could look around my room and see like what do I have going on here. Some Todd Sheets, I definitely got some Todd Sheets on my list,
Gotta be there.
And sorry, I can't answer like too much because I'm just so tired today that my brain's like, it's not exactly firing right now. I will send you my list and you can say it at some other time. Yeah.
Or let's have Cody throw out his list right now.
Yeah, Cody.
What's your off the cuff top 5 DIY horror flicks, motherfucker? Let's hear it.
I don't have 5 right now. You're putting me on the spot.
Come on, man. What's wrong with you guys? Mine would probably be obviously Leif Jonker's Darkness in the top slot. Definitely Video Violence would probably be part 2, because I just love video violence. Splatter Farm maybe rounding out the top 3 if we had to, list it. I think after that it'd be like Blood Cult, and then.
Well, if we're going on about that, because the original question was like, what were the inspiring ones? And that was what was hard for me. Have you seen that movie Variant yet? It's through SOP Horror. It is one of the craziest, coolest, most like just Joe Meredith, Cole Meredith, whatever. Joe Meredith, I think. And he has like, look that up on SOB Horror, and that is incredibly inspiring. It's weird. It's trippy. I do that. Spirit Gallery. It's an amazing film. I would definitely do that one. Fields of Terror was a really good one through those guys. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, back to you guys.
You ever mess with like Cannibal Campout back in the day?
No, but I have seen Curse of the Cannibal Confederates. Have you seen that?
Oh, the trauma flick.
It's trauma film. I mean, that's on my top 5 right there. when they light the little toy car on fire. That's my favorite part.
We're gonna have to
Rewound
get
that so many times.
Voegele in on some of those Trauma Tuesday discussions with me and Forrest.
I'm down for trauma. If you've seen my stuff, I'm a big trauma guy. I grew up on
Well,
Sergeant
we'll be tagging
Kabuki
you
Man.
in frequently on those if you want to
Yeah.
participate.
No,
Our first one is
absolutely
going to be a discussion for Tromia and Juliet that's recorded
I would love it.
next Sunday, man, if you have time. So
yeah, I don't see why not.
classic one. I don't know. I'm surprised at you fools. Where's your fucking top fives? You have to have at least Sherlock movies to throw out. If I had to do a top 3 Sherlock movies, it's definitely Odd Noggins. Anything with Jewel Siren, really, but Odd Noggins. Probably Dark Zone 13 Part 1 and Channel 99, I think, are my 3 favorites. Even taking into account like his standalone. So I'm such a sucker for his anthology stuff.
Yeah.
I'll take it all day, you know.
What's the Bloodsucking Redneck Vampires?
Which one?
Bloodsucking Redneck Vampires. I think there's 2 different names to it, so I always end up getting it wrong. But that's one of the funniest movies ever seen in my life.
I don't have it yet.
Oh God! Go to Skullface. See if Joe has a copy of that. That one's great to drink a 6-pack of beer with. I almost piss myself. I laugh so much every time I watch the movie. Yeah, seriously, one of the funniest movies I've ever seen.
Voegele is the dude we should have. Me and this dude have a lot of similar sensibilities.
We talk about Trauma's War.
I'm
not even sure we'd probably get canceled if we talk about Trauma's War or something like that. You know.
Yeah, fuck it. You can't cancel what doesn't exist anyway. Yeah. We basically have like fucking 21 subscribers at the moment. So,
we drop one. It's like, there goes mom.
They might retroactively try to cancel us for it, but when they see the other stuff we're covering, by that point, there will be no point.
Yeah.
No one's gonna cancel shit like this because no one gives a fuck. Other than people that like actually like it.
Toxie 4. Go tell the Pope he's an asshole and I'm not his friend.
See, there's a lot of trauma stuff I've sort of, I guess, grown out of, which sucks. I'm more into the vein of stuff like you and Joe are doing, but definitely I have nostalgia for a lot of it. And the Lemmy appearance in Toxie 4 is one of my favorite things. Man, I miss Lemmy and Motorhead. Yep. It's just so hard to live in a world where that doesn't exist, you know?
Yeah.
I liked knowing Lemmy was out there playing his stanky ass bass riffs, just at max volume, and not giving a fuck how good it sounded or whatever, you know. Like it made my life more complete. So we'd like to thank you, Joe, for coming on here. You know,
definitely.
This was a great time. I think that we had a real fun time talking about this right now. I think that there's, you know, when we get into talking about the Joe Sherlock stuff, you're a dude that should definitely be included as, you know, like a expert fan perspective.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I got every single one of his movies. I've seen everything. The only thing I haven't seen is the original Odd Noggins, because he shot an original Odd Noggins with some other people, and then he remade it later on. So, unfortunately, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, you're in the same boat as me. There's a lot of parallels with me and you, man. How did we wait so long into our lives to realize that horror conventions were a thing, and we could have been going to them always, you know?
It's the best fucking thing I've ever been to is Crypticon, and every year I go, it's like going back to see family. You know, getting drunk on the third floor, walking around, talking to the vendors that you see every year, talking to some of the celebrities that you end up seeing, you know, more than often than not, but just running into other people too that you just see every year. You know, just good friends. Then you hang out and you get shit faced upstairs. So yeah, just a beautiful time every year. It's my favorite day.
We gotta set something up like this coming year, man. Like I'll buy like a fucking keg or something, and we'll just hang out and watch a movie.
I'm down. It's my favorite thing to do is just talk about horror films and hang out. Yeah. So I'm anytime, brother.
So anybody got any closing questions for the Voegele? Right.
I can narrow it down to one last one.
Give it to me. Is it a jerk off question? I know the answer.
No. Oh, okay. I got a follow up then.
Okay.
Tell me about working with your wife.
Yeah. So my wife works with me occasionally when I'm able to get her to. So Prudence Nightingale. And she was in Dark Zone 13 Part 1. And I had originally had somebody else kind of lined up to play that character, but then it didn't work out. And so I told my wife, I was like, I need you to be in my movie because I have no other option. And then she said, okay, I guess so. And then she dressed up for it and she looked pretty hot, I think, when she got all dark. Like, I keep asking her, could you dress like that more often? But she won't. So
hey, my birthday's coming up.
Yeah, right. And no, she always does a wonderful job. And so once in a while you'll see like somebody in the background, like, wearing something head to toe that might be her. But usually she's a pretty busy boss lady at her job. She's like a nurse. And so she but once in a while she'll be on set, and she helps me with camera work occasionally, and she gets some really interesting shots, so she has a good eye for that. And then she was in the Amcal on Topless Tory, and I didn't specifically write that character for her, but then she ended up nailing it. I think she steals the show in that film. So she's the drunk Mandy chick that's like, fuck you guys. Yeah. So yeah, we once in a while I'll get a role for her that I can convince her to act in, and so she always ends up doing a really good job. She helps me make guts and blood and all that stuff. So yeah, she's a great prop maker as well.
Sounds like quite the catch, man. I mean,
yeah, I'm a lucky guy.
I think honestly, the short film I did at the time kind of had a hand in ending the relationship.
That'll be the test. That'll be the test. Is like how it's like, because you're putting your weirdness on your sleeve, and then people really see you for who you are, and then everybody sees me, and they're like, I'm always the guy wanking it off in the car or something like that, and making weird noises.
As much as I'd love to see your tits, we are shooting this until it's done.
Yeah.
So there it is.
Yep.
Let's get the shot. Yeah,
it's all about just getting your coverage. Yeah, so once you're on set, make sure you get your coverage. So that's all I always say.
Joe says Prudence is drunk. Hilarious as the drunk girl.
She is. Yeah, she's super. She every time I watch that, I end up laughing my ass off at her. And every time that we've been on set together, she makes me laugh pretty good. But she's especially funny as Mandy. Yeah.
So I guess in closing, we still have that top 5 question out. Yeah. So
that lingering top 5
other ones to check out there. There has to be. You have to have like other low budget movies you like.
I do. I probably have a million of them. I have. I just can't think in particular.
Just throw out 5. It doesn't have to be the top 5. It just has to be.
It has to be just 5 low budget favorites. What is low budget? Because when I hear low budget, I think Joe or I for $1,500, whereas other people will be
that's what we think too. We're
not
talking about IFC movies that claim to be indie films, but are really $300,000 films.
Well, I would say Terror at Blood Fart Lake was one of the funniest movies.
Yes.
I've seen that sometimes.
Fuck yes.
Yeah, I love that. I love a good Chris Seaver film. And what was that? I got that other, The Weirdsies. That was interesting.
The Weirdsies is near and dear to my heart, for sure.
Yeah, it's just you can't get past those ones. And like I said, some Todd Sheets films, anything that he does, it might not be very good or even easily watchable, but I always like to sit down and watch some of those as well.
See, he's one of those dudes, because I'm not a huge zombie guy, where I just watched the zombie Bloodbath trilogy and then I was kind of moved on. I probably
he put you off of zombies.
Yeah, I just after the zombies, I was like, all right, I'm good. So, but he probably has done some stuff that I would like. John McBride is a huge dude for me, especially for Cannibal Campout. That's a movie that has a very special spot in my heart. That sing-along that they do when they're on the road, which just turns out to have been written by John McBride as well, is one of the coolest inclusions in a shot-on-video horror movie that I've ever seen. I mean, it's one of the most infectious. earworm of a song. Brandon knows what I'm talking about because he saw my review on it, but it's just so good, dude. Like if you can write like a folk song, an acoustic folk song to go along with like your camping cannibal movie, I think that's you should probably.
Well, I tell you, I got a big like near and dear to my heart about camping movies, and it doesn't even end up have to being about slasher films. It's just like camping in general, like The Burning or Meatballs 3. Just anything, and so that's kind of like a big thing. So basically, that's why I do like the Camp Blood movies, just because I like watching people getting killed at camps and stuff like that. So
my love of camping and survival shit goes way beyond slasher movies. I mean, My Side of the Mountain is one of my favorite books of all time, still to this day. It's just about a kid that goes and lives in a hollowed out tree in the woods for like a year.
If you want to learn how to make a movie and torture yourself making a movie, make it outside in a camping setting, because it's both wonderful, but at the same time, once you're done, you're so tired of writing movies that take place outside camping, because you're constantly waiting for, is it going to rain? What's going to happen to my shot? Is there sounds going on? That's another thing I learned about Specimen 6. And even though I kept doing it several times afterwards, it's such a pain in the ass to make a camping outdoors sort of thing. So I've had many terrible days because of that.
You guys got to start trucking out here to the fucking, Eastern Oregon, then you can get up in the Blue Mountains.
I know.
I've
been to Oregon a lot to do that, but I haven't been out to Eastern Oregon to shoot.
Yeah, that's where I live, and we could be doing that all day, and then I'm right here, so like we could have pool parties.
Well, I'll have to get back to you, because I might have I'll have something coming up this spring summer that I might need your hand on set. So.
It's a good place, but I do appreciate you coming on with us. I appreciate you answering all our questions and indulging our nerdiness. You got anything else for him there, Cody?
No, just thank you, and we'd love to have you on again sometime. Look forward to all that stuff coming up. I'm sure all three of us will definitely buy every single one of them.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
If you had a film that you would submit for us to cover that you would be on for as just a fan, what would it be? Odd Noggins, maybe?
Yes, I would love to be here for Odd Noggins. If we could do that and break that down, I would be all about that. So
we'll put you on the list, man.
All right, cool. That would be, I would nerd out big time. Awesome. I have some, well, I can't talk about other stuff that I know about that's coming up, but I would love to talk about Odd Noggins. Yeah. So, but I always got lots of behind the scenes sort of stuff as far as whatever other stories, being on set, things like that. Oh, you know what though? We didn't even talk about Natasha Naidi.
We didn't actually. That was one that I wanted to ask you about too.
Cody's got all the time in the world, guys, and Cody's got a commercial I saw that was funny as fuck.
I got one in each one of them.
Yep. I got. I have a commercial in the first one, and I have 4 in the second one.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow. Did not know about that. That stuff's all sort of shit that I'm learning about now because of Cody and Brandon. So, and that's the beauty of the DIY shit. You're always learning about new stuff. I mean, there's no shortage of it to be.
Oh, there's always irons in the fire with us guys. Yeah, we got so much stuff that we've done and we put out there. We just don't even know it's coming back. Like, oh, that's coming out finally. And I think Natasha Naidi, I had done a bunch of stuff like much earlier, and then I had given it to Tony just because I had it for fun. I was hanging out shooting something else with my friend Gail, and I said like, hey, do you want to make a commercial for this thing called Natasha? Actually, I didn't even know that it was coming out. I said, my buddy Tony usually does these things where he makes these fake commercials. Do you want to make a fake commercial since we're already here? And so we came up with the whole idea of 1-900 Burger Hut, and so the 1-900 Burger Hut was where we had a sexy girl that was saying 1-900 Burger Hut over and over because they ran out of actual 1-900, steamy, sexy numbers. And so we filmed a few of those on there. I don't know if you guys have watched those, but they're good.
We got Don Aruna saying you should come back to Oregon.
I know. I'm trying. I went there 4 times. Like Don is like, I've shot with Donna several times in the last year.
And we've got Boris himself saying,
There's
"Who
Philip."
guys?" There
Yeah,
he
Philip's a
is.
good friend. I wish I could talk to Philip more. We haven't talked in a while. Of course, he did Dark Zone 13 and Dark Zone 13 2, his stuff.
He did.
So
Soon to appear as the same character in a friend of ours anthology that's coming up. So
man, you got to tell me about that. Philip hasn't told me about that. I want to see
they
that.
summon fucking Boris with a Ouija board and shit. It's fucking awesome, dude.
I can't wait to see that.
It's good stuff.
I would say up and coming. I wish I could see more of Philip's stuff because he has this like amazing just this particular vision with the Boris stuff. It's fascinating and enchanting.
Yeah.
So
and it's all intertwined with the Sherlock John Bowker stuff.
Yeah.
Especially relating to
and
the
that's kind of
sequels
like Joe and John's earlier stuff. Like he loves the film sequels and all that stuff. And I love Evil Maker 2. Those are fascinating films.
Yep.
I would love to be on here for those films. Yeah, if you're ever talking about those.
We will.
I would love any time that you're talking about those because, those earlier films, I mean, all of those films are great, but those ones, I mean, John has such like this kind of cerebral approach to his earlier films that just, he puts so much of himself in those. Those would be terrific to talk about.
It reminds me a lot more like the 70s stuff that you would see in like a drive-in or something. Like,
yeah,
it's got more of that weird dreamy quality to it that Sherlock stuff has in a different way where it's more towards that anthology, like, pulp magazine, like Lovecraftian kind of a way of doing it. But the Bowker stuff has more like that pulpy, like old magazine stories kind of a feel to it, at least to me. So I love it equally.
That house has a fascinating ending. I love that. Yeah, just all those. Yeah, it called me up.
Housebound is one of those ones we probably wouldn't have a DVD release of that if it wasn't for Boris.
Really?
Yeah. If you listen to our interview with him and then subsequent talks, like Boris basically bugged those guys into releasing some of it.
Philip doing that. I can see Philip is such a hardcore Joe and John fan.
Yes.
Did he show you
any of us? I mean, he is die hard, 24/7.
Yeah.
None of us could ever compare to the level of fandom that kid has.
Yeah.
He's written like a 300-page like Seeker's fan fiction novel, but man, the T-shirt alone is worth owning. And if it can ever get done, I'll buy the book as well. So, but yeah, man, I mean, this is all stuff that springs up around a dude. Extended shower scenes, lots of H.P. Lovecraft worship. Tons of Tales from the Crypt and old school Cable worship as well. I mean, we're all fans of the dude, and that's Joe Sherlock.
Yeah.
And without that, and with really, quite literally, without Philip, I wouldn't be here with Cody or, him. Or if it wasn't for Boris, we wouldn't be doing this right now.
That's awesome. Yeah. Miss Philip. Got to see him soon.
So, thanks for coming on with us, though, man.
My pleasure.
Looking forward to future discussions with you.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Do you have anything to say? This is really your show, bud. So.
No, we're good. It's a good spot. Hopefully to be continued. We know you got a baby to get back to, so thanks for your time, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right, guys. Well, thanks again. This is fun. All right. How do I back out of this? Stop cam.
Brandon, you have anything before we go? Yep.
All good.
I'll go to the neighborhood.
All right.
All right.
Well, my friends, this has been another episode of Schlockaholics. You've been a bunch of sexy beasts. I've been Mosley. Cody has been Cody. And Joe has been one of several Joes. We will see you back here. What's that?
Oh, nothing. Just joking. All right. See you guys later.
See you, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
You don't have to actually leave.